Hi, and welcome back to I'm a Happy Enchilada. And if you're new, thanks for tuning us in. I'm Don Culver, and I'll be your host. Now, today we have a tough topic to discuss. It's coping with the loss of a loved one. That's something we are all bound to have to cope with at some time in our lives, and many of us have already been through that. So let's take a look at it and look at ways to cope that can help with the pain and grief of losing someone you love. First, what exactly does coping with loss mean? Well, it's the emotional suffering you feel when something or someone you love is taken away. Often the pain of loss can feel overwhelming. You may experience all kinds of difficult and unexpected emotions, from shock or anger to disbelief, guilt, anxiety, and profound sadness. And why does loss hurt so much? Well, the pain is caused by the overwhelming amount of stress hormones being released during the grieving process. These effectively stun the muscles they contact. Stress hormones act on the body in a similar way to broken heart syndrome. Aches and pains from grief should be temporary, though. Now, let's look at the 7 stages of grief, starting with shock and denial. Feelings of shock and denial are unavoidable in nearly every situation, even if you could foresee it coming. Then, pain and guilt, anger and bargaining, depression, loneliness and reflection, upward turn, reconstruction, acceptance and hope. So, what is the hardest stage, you ask? Well, depression is usually the longest and most difficult stage of grief. Ironically, what brings us out of our depression is finally allowing ourselves to experience our very deepest sadness. We come to the place where we accept the loss, make some meaning of it for our lives, and are able to move on. Grief is hard work, and it requires more energy to work through than most people expect. It takes a toll on us physically and emotionally. This is why we often feel fatigued after a loss, or why we may feel apathetic towards people and events. Some people struggle with grief more than others, surely. Complicated mourning often occurs when the death was sudden, unexpected, or traumatic, or if the deceased was young, because the surviving loved ones feel a sense of injustice. I sure get that. So, how long does it take to get over the death of a partner or a spouse? Typically, the grieving period for a partner or a spouse can last anywhere from 6 months to 12 months for it to cycle all the way through with no additional complications coming into play. When you lose a parent, you feel most of the grief within the first 6 months after the loss. It's normal to have a tough time for the first year, and after that, often accept your parents' death and move on. But the grief may bubble up, especially on holidays and birthdays. Yeah, I remember the first Christmas after my mother died. And at Christmas, it was just my daughter and myself opening presents around the tree on Christmas morning. And I was having this rush of feelings flowing through me that was unbelievable. It was a very difficult day. So anyway, I was looking for another feeling that some feel when they have a loved one die. The word is relief. I saw it once associated with other feelings that one might experience, but I just couldn't find an explanation of it in my research. So what I mean is, a person who had a parent, partner, spouse, or family member that purposely treated them badly with disrespect, disdain, put them down, made them feel small, beat, abused, or violated them in any way, feeling utter relief or even joy when that person's death occurred. Personally know a couple people who felt exactly that way when their perpetrators died. They felt liberated and at last free to live in peace. Now, let's take a look at some healthy ways to cope with the loss of a loved one, shall we? First, surround yourself with people who care. Find relatives and friends who can understand your feelings of loss. Take good care of yourself in all ways. Let others help you. Accept that life is worth living. Be patient and postpone major decisions. That's super important. Consider grief counseling. Take charge of your new life. All right. And here's some more spiritual ways to cope with loss and longing. Hand your script over to God. Trust Him in all things. Acknowledge and grieve your loss. It's not about moving past losses, but about moving through them. Put your loss in perspective. Recognize God's presence in your life and remember His promises. Embrace the life God has given you and dream again. I love that. And just a couple more things I wanted to throw in. Accept your feelings. Reach out and help others dealing with loss. And love yourself. Well, I hope this episode will bring some peace, hope, and healing to you or someone you might know that maybe is coping with the loss of a loved one. Please share and pass this information on to someone that it might help as they move on with their life. Well, that's all I've got. So until next time, God bless and be a happy enchilada. Bye.